The bad ending of Game of Thrones happened for the greater good.
I don't want it. I never have.
You may have been worried about the guys who wrote Game of Thrones. They already had their sticky fingers around the new Star Wars trilogy, but now they've stepped down. We think it's fate. Allow us to explain why. This December, the 40-year-old Skywalker saga will end with Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker.
Taking one last look, sir, at my friends.
The people at Disney, specifically the president of Lucasfilms, Kathleen For the Culture Kennedy, had the future all planned out, so that not a day would go by without a new Star Wars for the people to chomp on. This next post-Skywalker chapter was also set to cash in on another genre success, Game of Thrones, but no longer. D&D, no, not Dungeons & Dragons. It's the guys who adapted Game of Thrones from the book, midwifing it into the biggest show in the world, and then guiding it straight into a ditch, where it took its last disappointing gasp. These guys, David Benioff and D.B. Weiss, were supposed to be doing the next Star Wars trilogy, but they now claim to have turned it down. For Netflix? Specifically, they've accepted a $300 million deal with the fast-fading streaming company, and are worried that they'll be too busy creating $300 million worth of Netflix movies for mothers and NFL players. This all sounds awfully familiar. Remember their explanation for Game of Thrones' disappointing conclusion? They were just too busy, they said, so they rushed the script, and that special aspect of good television, known as quality, fell by the wayside. Not only did they acknowledge this, they played it off like it was only natural, and that you too would take writing shortcuts if you were busy writing your magnus opus, Gemini Man. This was only the beginning. You may also remember their surprisingly bold explanation for the less fantastical tone of the final season. We just didn't want to appeal to that type of fan, they said. What type of fan exactly did they want to appeal to? You guessed it, mothers and NFL players. Game of Thrones fans were not happy, even before hearing D&D's dismissive explanations. Even their target audience, NFL players, were pissed off.
I love the show, but you know, the writers are also doing Star Wars, so I think they might have been a little busy this last season.
But Game of Thrones has only been on TV since 2011, and the first book in the series came out in 1996. Imagine the same fury, but in the hearts, minds, and hands of Star Wars fans, a franchise that's been around for 40 years. That is a lot of pent-up anger. If Star Wars had actually been handled by these guys, blood would have been spilled. The official story is that they decided to step down, but after witnessing their imperfect handling of Game of Thrones and the ensuing backlash, maybe, just maybe, Mademoiselle Kennedy decided to step in and assist them with their stepping down. The two Ds apparently speak in unison, like the Sisters Febreze from Talladega Nights.
Hey, you're Breeze or you're Breeze? Which one of you's Breeze?
Together, we are Breeze.
Here's what they said together. We love Star Wars. When George Lucas built it, he built us too. Getting to talk about Star Wars with him and the current Star Wars team was the thrill of a lifetime, and we will always be indebted to the saga that changed everything. There are only so many hours in the day, and we felt we could not do justice to both Star Wars and our Netflix projects, so we were regretfully stepping away. The intensity of their regret is matched only by the not-so-passive aggression of President Kathy, who said, David Benioff and Dan Weiss are incredible storytellers. We hope to include them in the journey forward when they're able to step away from their busy schedule to focus on Star Wars. Although Kennedy's statement may make it seem like she's torn up about the whole affair, she's probably rejoicing in private. Not only did the D duo make a bad ending to the world's most popular show, one half of the pair, David Benioff, wrote X-Men Origins Wolverine. Remember, this is a movie where they took Deadpool, the chattiest, wittiest, wisecracking Marvel character ever to exist, and surgically covered his mouth. These guys have been botching franchises long before their Iron Throne cop-out. But add to this the fact that the new Star Wars trilogy was set to be a prequel, and you've got a recipe for disaster. So Star Wars fans, take a sigh of relief, and let's take a look at what might come next in the franchise. Let's start with the positive. The Mandalorian comes out in only 2 weeks, and whatever you think of the new show, there is one universal reason to rejoice: Werner Herzog.
Try to look a chicken in the eye with great intensity.
That irresistible German accent in the new Mandalorian trailer? That's the voice of the guy who has made more than 60 movies and a dozen operas. A guy who ate a shoe in front of a live audience because he lost a bet about pet cemeteries. When he heard that his friend was dying of an illness in Paris, he decided that if he walked all the way there from Munich, in the dead of winter, his friend would be cured. Roger Ebert said that Herzog has never created a single film that is compromised, shameful, made for pragmatic reasons, or uninteresting. Even his failures are spectacular. So But don't worry about The Mandalorian, it's in good hands. There's also nothing to worry about in terms of the Solo movies, which have been scrapped. As for December's Rise of Skywalker, which will cap off the decades-long Skywalker era, you know what to expect. If you liked the last two in the trilogy, you'll probably like the third. If you didn't, you probably won't. Then there's the return of Ewan McGregor, and a dedicated Obi-Wan TV series. This is worrying, and could have Jar Jar Binks in it. On the other hand, maybe they've learned from their mistakes, and are working extra hard to atone for past prequel sins. Let's hope so. As for the next trilogy, the slate has been wiped clean. Who do you think Lucasfilm and Disney will find to replace D&D? Who deserves the job? Let us know what you think in the comments below, and of course, don't forget to subscribe to Screen Rant.